For more on the state of labor movement here in the United States, let's bring in William Lee. He's the chief economist at the Milken Institute. William, thanks for joining us. This is an interesting one.
Very much so.
The last few decades have not been kind to labor here in the United States. So how significant are these victories? Because not only that, Starbucks, REI have also had recent victories as well.
This is a time when the labor markets have really transformed themselves. We are coming out of a recovery. The labor market is very tight. There are a huge number of job openings, especially relative to the number of people who are unemployed. But what's odd about it is that in this tight labor environment, labor really isn't gaining as much as we thought it would. Low entry-level wages are rising like crazy, but the middle and upper managements really haven't gone very far. Amazon is one example of where the strength of the unions is starting to show up because labor is now having to negotiate with bigger business, especially digital businesses.
Yeah, and you're also talking about a disparity in wealth here in the United States, which has fired people up. Do you see a shift in attitude as people vote whether to join a labor union or not right now?
I think this latest development shows that labor unions themselves also have to change. Yes, absolutely. People during COVID felt that they weren't well represented, that somehow companies were not protecting their health and their usual human rights as laborers and workers. And I think one of the things that has developed is that smaller unions are starting to get closer to the workers and be able to understand what it is that workers are looking for. And that's exactly what happened in Staten Island.
Yeah, I think we all remember seeing that as the pandemic unfolded and so many people were getting sick. And as the pandemic did take center stage back in early 2020, especially in areas where people work close together, in assembly lines, shipping and such, what part has the pandemic played in this sort of rebirth of labor, if you will?
It's highlighted the need for worker safety. It's highlighted the need to be conscious of what it is that workers actually need to be safe and to be fulfilled in their jobs. Larger labor unions, especially the ones that have become well known, like the Teamsters Union or the Auto Workers Union, have somehow gotten removed from the needs of other people who are in the lower pay categories, and especially the newer jobs that have developed in the warehouses and in the restaurant fields. Those workers are not well represented by those larger unions, and the smaller unions are starting to take over, as you see what's happening in Staten Island.
William, what about the geographic location as well? Let's break down the Amazon Workers Union, for example. In New York, now, while the company wasn't happy, but we had two different pushes, one in New York and one in Alabama. Now, why has Amazon workers, why have they been more successful? I'm sorry, why has Amazon been more successful in fending off labor in the South?
I think in the South, where there's been a tradition of more free market for labor, the companies themselves have been able to address the needs of the workers much better. They were able to say, look, you can negotiate with us and not have this intermediary represent you and take a cut from what you're getting. Whereas in New York, it has a greater tradition of unionism and also I think the success of this particular union had very special circumstances. For example, this job had lots of turnover, but they were still able to get 30% of the votes.
And big U.S. companies also have a history here in the U.S. of a less than veiled threat of shutting down a company if it does go union. What is going to happen to the Amazon workers in New York now, and how will Amazon and others facing a labor push deal with an effort to organize?
Amazon is in a unique position of having lots and lots of warehouse centers, lots and lots of fulfillment centers. If they really have trouble negotiating with one location, they have no problem shifting the work to other fulfillment centers. So they still have that power. So this particular union, this embryonic union, is going to have to be very careful in being able to preserve the jobs as well as gain the workers their rights. And this will be a challenge for all of the future labor movements in the digital age.
Could we see this union effort spread, say, to big tech, to high tech?
I think the big tech firms have been very aware of these embryonic labor movements, and they've been trying very hard to make sure that their workers, places like Starbucks, are giving benefits that workers really want. And as long as they're successful in fulfilling the employees' needs, there's really no need for a labor union. I think the circumstances in Staten Island were very special, that somehow the warehouse supervisors just lost touch with the needs of the workers.
Do you think that, to a degree, it doesn't help to see a billion-dollar rocket go up in the air periodically?
Well, there are priorities that companies have, and Amazon has shown that it has shifted its emphasis to other places. Starbucks, on the other hand, is starting to cut their stock buybacks and say, look, we're going to devote more of the money that we're making to workers. And there's the difference.